Blessings, Rocky Metal Guardians. I hope you're doing well wherever you may find yourselves. I'm Dane, host of the channel, and welcome to part 2 of my little mini series called It's the Music That Matters. Before we dive right in, let me just say that nothing I'm going to present to you today, am I saying, isn't important. Of course, the things that I'm going to present to you are important. However, compared to the music itself, these are secondary or tertiary, and so down the line. So let's now go ahead and get started. So there are 2 components to what I'm presenting today, the things that are not numero uno, that are not first and foremost, and that is the perspective from us fans and critics and the musicians themselves. So keep that in mind. So let's start with Image. Here is Slipknot. Of course, masks have changed over the years. This is their debut. It's the only new metal band that I like. Here is Rage for Order by Queensryche. And if we pull out the little mini booklet here, the original back had all the 5 members in what appears to be like, it's a little blurry, sorry for that, but yeah, a little vampire type costuming and outfits. Pretty cool, right? Then, of course, who can forget Kiss's debut, starting the makeup. Of course, makeup would change throughout the history of the band. Perhaps his best album, Alice Cooper, From the Inside. And last but certainly not least is perhaps the most iconic look Bowie ever had, Aladdin Sane. Gotta love the lightning bolt, at least I do. And there are others, there are tons of other examples of Image, right? So from a musician standpoint, of course, Sweet comes to mind, right? They bubblegum pop type of thing. They started with the makeup, so many, right? Now, from a musician standpoint, we get the want to attract fans through some gimmick, and that leads to merchandising. But we'll get to that in a separate discussion here today. But we get that is a way to connect and reach out to the fans because they may be going through that identity crisis, and even if it's not an identity crisis, it's still meant to shock and piss off mom and dad, that kind of thing. Alice Cooper, Kiss, right? So we get that. I'm not saying it's not important, but the music is what matters. Okay, the image can be cool, but the music is first and foremost. And I think a lot of people get caught up in their attraction to a band maybe just because it's a gimmick, and are they really liking the music? Are they taking the music? And again, I can't speak for anyone, but I know there are some people out there, because I've talked to them, that, okay, great, what led you to them first and foremost was the attraction, the image, the shock, and all that, but does the music possess integrity and chemistry and synergy and all that? So that's what I mean. Now, from the musician standpoint, hey, we're doing this to attract fans. Now, the fans, again, I pretty much answered this particular topic with both fans and musicians. So I may do that. It's going to blur into each other. So one more time, from a fan perspective, they're attracted to this artist or musician because of that sense of belonging and wanting to fit in, right? And showing off the merchandise. But again, we'll get to merchandise. So very important to understand that, building that connection between musician and fan. Okay. Next is sales. From a musician standpoint, of course you want to be popular. Of course you want to demonstrate that, hey, look, we're a rising star, or we've achieved success, right? But again, the motivation behind being on stage and going into a recording studio, okay, is not your appearance, as I said, or image. It's not how much can you sell, and therefore the connection to that is money. So these are one and the same, really, sales and money. Okay, the merchandise factor. Let's see. So from a fan perspective now, many of us look at, did it go gold? Did it go platinum? Did it go diamond? How many times did it go platinum? The RIAA certification kind of thing. Essentially, all that sales and RIAA certification shows is how much you sell. What were your sales like? How much did you sell? Excuse me. And to some extent, how popular you are. But again, I did a video a long time ago about how that's misleading because, how many times did a person play that record? Was it a gift? All that. I'm not going to go through all that again. I've done that to death. So if you're a musician, your primary motivation should be love of music and wanting to share your love of music on stage in the studio, recordings, live recordings and all that. Talk to the fans, right? That kind of thing. From a fan perspective, yes, we can get caught up in, like I said, the certification process. Hey, did you know Rush is the third leading, behind the Stones and the Beatles with respect to most platinum and gold sale? Okay, great. But it's the music that matters. Okay. Now, tied to sales is merchandising. I don't know if this is still the top two, but as last time I checked, and it's been a while, the top two bands who've led in merchandising T-shirts, buttons, lunch boxes, right? You name it. Or the Beatles, and then Kiss. And let's face it, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons were masters, and it's been on record that was perhaps the primary motive for being a musician, was the gimmick, the makeup, to get everyone hooked in, but also to drive sales. And so I question it. As much as I love Kiss, starting with the debut through and including Creatures of the Night, with the exception of The Elder and Unmasked, a couple good tracks on each album, maybe 2 or 3 from each. It's supposed to be the music, Paul and Gene, that matters. And that's why Ace fled. That's why Ace left, because of the lack of integrity. But that's been done to death as well. So merchandising is an important thing. You want to be successful. And I buy merchandise. I have on my wish list, I saw a Mick Ronson t-shirt that I want to get from Redbubble or TeePublic. I'm going to get it, hopefully. So I get that. But for me, what's more important, that Mick Ronson t-shirt or the music that Mick Ronson has, whether he plays with Bowie or Lou Reed or his solo stuff, which is quite good and underrated. Down the road, I'm going to do a video on his 4 and a half or 5 solo records. They're hard to find, by the way, but I got one on the way. I have everything from him on MP3, but again, I want to have the ability to go to someone's house and play it with them and play it on my. Another video I've already done to death is the importance of physical media. So anyway, so merchandising, and from a fan perspective, again, we like showing off our T-shirts, right? Not so much showing off. I take that back. We want to demonstrate our loyalty and show others, hey, maybe you would like this group too. So maybe it's a touch of showing off. I'm not a big fan of showing off, but that's not why I wear a rock T-shirt. It's to demonstrate my love of a band. So merchandising. All right, the next is chasing women, and this is just the musicians themselves. Going back to Kiss, many a band, Def Leppard comes to mind. That's why they shifted away from that hard and heavy of their first 3 albums to Hysteria and all that. I talked about that also in a separate video, but that's not integrity if your primary reason is to chase skirt. Now, the next one, I also did a video on this, is chasing hit singles. This is what I call the Ritchie Blackmore effect. You go from this hard-edged, hard rock band in Rainbow to a more soft rock era with the Joe Lynn Turner once you get into Bent Out of Shape, and part and parcel with what I find not very good is Down to Earth. I do like Straight Between the Eyes. That's a good album from start to finish for the most part. So there's an exception in between. Once Ritchie Blackmore's got his eye on becoming like Foreigner of all, again, I talked about that already. And from a fan perspective, this can go both ways. The masses love pop songs. The masses love singles, as opposed to people like me, where we like singles, some of them, but we're more driven by the deep cut or the hit song that isn't a single, or it's a popular song. Take Rush, Xanadu. That is not a single, but it is a hit song. in that sense. So not necessarily the same thing. So again, when it comes to chasing hit singles, then the integrity becomes questionable. The music is what matters, regardless of whether it's a single or not, or a deep cut, or a hit, etc. So keep that in mind. All right, let's talk about gear. And I'll just use two examples. We all know, well, most of us know that Eddie Van Halen was a gearhead at some point, and we saw that come into its own or into fruition once we get the 1984 album, because now he's going into keyboards, and that's not the Van Halen I know and love. And if we talk about Geddy Lee, in his biography, he talks about this some effect. He is a gearhead. Same thing. Once you get into subdivisions, you've moved away from the power that was Moving Pictures. Again, Neil Peart says that when Moving Pictures came out, or when they were making it, he realized we were now Rush, and I have issues with that because the stuff that came before that to me is Rush, and so. But if we take into consideration that comment from Neil, this is when we became Rush. Well, that Rush didn't stay very long because it was one album. Because now you're moving into reggae and ska and pop singles or stuff that sounds like the Police. Again, done that to death as well. Many people as well. So, but this notion of it's not the gear that you have so much as what you do with that gear, right? I have a pen and I have some paper, right? And I write poetry, but I don't share it. And I could have a $3,000 pen. I'm not. And I could buy, a $20 notebook. I'm not. It's what I write down. And if the quality of the poem or the story is good is what matters. So that's the association with gear. And gear is cool because I have gear, but for my bass, but I don't go overboard with it. Anyway, again, none of what I'm saying today isn't important. It just shouldn't be first and foremost. Now let's talk about isms. So one of my first videos I did, well, maybe not first, but one of my earlier videos going back to probably September or October, this channel turned a year old, I think Thursday or Friday, late May. It's now June 1st as I'm recording this. Anyway, Saturday. But I was talking about, I have a mini series or a playlist called Confessions. There are 3 or 4 of them. It's not a very long playlist, and maybe I'll add to it later. But one of the videos was bands I just don't get or something like that, and one of them is Captain Beefheart, and I talked specifically about the debut Trout Mask Replica, which it turns out I just learned the other day the Trout on that album cover is actually a bass. So weird. But anyway, and some guy posted in the comments, or some gal posted in the comments, they're awesome. They're a surrealist. Okay, surrealism. I know what surrealism is. I studied that in college, as I did many other isms. But I don't care what your ism is. Well, sort of. I'll get to that. I don't care what your ism is. Let's say it's a good ism. Let's say I like surrealism, and there's some surrealism I like. I like Salvador Dali. But what's coming out of my speakers, and I'm pointing at my speakers here that you can't see. If what's coming out my speakers and into my ears, I don't like, I'm not going to like. It doesn't matter what the ism is. Again, you can have the greatest ideologies in the world. Okay? Let's say you're a Christian rock band. Okay, great. I'm Christian. I'm practicing. But if I don't like the music coming out of that, I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to buy into your shtick. Okay? Now, having said that, related to isms is politics. Okay? So let's say I was more of a Bruce Springsteen fan. I'm a casual fan. I'm not the biggest Springsteen fan. Let's say I don't like his politics. I'm not sure what his politics are, to be honest with you, but let's say I don't like his politics. That may not affect his music that I like. Now, if it turns out I look at some of the lyrics and go, oh, I don't like the politics here, well, okay, I get that. Okay, so politics may change your idea towards a artist. But still, for the most part, I can be a fan of an artist. Let's take comedian George Carlin. Did I agree with his political ideologies? Most of it, but there was a couple things he said as a Christian. I was like, oh no, I don't agree with that. Still a fan. Don't have to agree with everything. So just keep that in mind. It's kind of a little sidebar to what I'm presenting today. So isms. If you're, let's see, if you're a nihilist, it's not something I believe in, but let's say you're a nihilist, and I could probably still like your music, but I'm not going to agree with your lyrics or your agenda. I am a lyrics person, but I may not agree always with your lyrics. So just keep that in mind. All right. So this is the connection. I'm not going to tackle this separately, fans and musicians. So the musicians have their political ideology or their isms, they're surrealistic or whatever. Okay, great. I don't have to buy into it. The fans may not. Okay, so this can be a double-edged sword. All right, now, let's talk about history, the history of a band. Well, that's great. I like to talk about the history of bands, especially when there's company and you're in a room of people and you're talking about music. I'd like to do more videos on the history of. I haven't done any, but history on certain bands, but those have been kind of done to death. So that's important as well. But the music's still more important. The music itself is more important than the history of music. But the history of music is worth studying. All right, let's talk about influence. And I've talked about this before. Influence is very important. So when I hear this song, it's an Urge Overkill song called Digital Black. So I can't remember the name of the song, but anyway, it's the last track on Exit the Dragon, which is my favorite album by them. I haven't listened to that in a while. Digital Black Analog is the name of the song. The opening piece sounds very similar to the Rolling Stones' Let It Loose. So, yeah, I can compare and contrast one band with another. That's very fun. You can see that Urge Overkill from that song was influenced. It's also the song that broke the band up, apparently, but you can see the influence. This is great to talk about influence, but music is more important. Again, what's coming out speakers into my ears, more important than influence. Motley Crue influenced, especially from Nikki Sixx's point of view, by the band Sweet. Hey, I'm a big Sweet fan, but music is more important. All right, now, what needs to be understood, one more time, is all these things that I mentioned: image, attitude. Oh, I didn't mention that. Let me get to that. So, attitude. I also talked about this a bit in a video I did 2 weeks ago, give or take, about the most overrated bands of all time, in my opinion. And I talked about this because I remember watching another channel that I'm subscribed to. It's a great channel. And the host was talking about the Sex Pistols and Nirvana, by many a fan, are regarded as overrated. And he didn't chime in, he didn't respond. But what he did say is, hey folks, Nirvana and Sex Pistols are not known for their musicianship. And I thought, well, shouldn't you be? Because musicianship is first and foremost. But a lot of people say grunge and punk's about attitude. Okay, great. Attitude is important. That kind of coincides with image and isms. But your attitude could be the greatest attitude in the world. But again, what I'm hearing out of my speakers and into my ears doesn't connect or resonate with me. You can have the best attitude, not going to listen to it. So that's what I'm trying to establish here. So one more time: image, attitude, influence, history, sales, popularity, isms, ideology, politics, gear, techniques, merchandising, chasing women, chasing hit singles, all of that. They're secondary or tertiary or after that. The music comes first and foremost. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye.